This is a map strategy guide for the map Live Oaks. I'm only going to talk about the strategies that I like to play. I don't like to brawl, so I don't like to play in the city, and I really don't like to play along the rail line because it's pretty much brawling also. I like to play where I have some sort of an advantage over the enemy team. Flanking is my primary strategy, or spotting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a position where I can hit the enemy on their weakest armor, which will be on the side armor usually. Now, if you look at this particular map, you're going to notice that there's two green triangles. So we're going to do, well, okay, so I made a little mistake here. There's a red spawn, and I put up green tanks for the red spawn. I'm not going to fix it, so just... This triangle right here has the ability to snipe on tanks that pass that house, this house right over here in this area. Oh, come on. This is kind of like the view range you get from that sniping position. So any enemy tanks that travel through this area, for example, over here, you're going to be able to snipe at them. And if you watch my videos, my sniping position videos, anything with Live Oaks, you're going to see me playing this position often. If you use a autoloader or a derp gun or a gun that does a lot of damage or a fast-firing gun, you can hit these tanks and soften them up before they get to town. And there's a lot of times when we kill tanks before they make it to town. You're also going to get tank destroyers over here in the back that try to play in a hull down position. T-30s will do it. T-34 heavy tanks will do it. Okay, so there's a secondary position that I'm going to talk about, which is along this view line. And what you do is obviously you move to the house over here, and you're going to be able to hit enemy tanks as they enter town in this area. When they have to cross over, you're going to be able to get a shot in on them. If they're a lightly armored tank, they're just going to keep on rolling. If they're a heavily armored tank like a mouse, they might stop and try and shoot back at you. So one of the tricks you can use is wait until they cross and hit them in the rear. If you hit them in the rear, chances are they're just going to keep on going. They're not going to reverse out and try and shoot at you. But if you hit them in the front of the tank as they cross over, there's a good chance they're going to see you and turn their guns and aim at you. Okay, so those are the sniping positions that I like to play on this map, and I do it with all sorts of different tanks. I'm going to talk about some alternate positions that you can try. You can sit here and get a view across. And this position is a little bit safer than the one that I just showed you. And there's bushes there that you can hide in. If you watch my videos over the course of the last year, you're going to see me playing these positions. You can also play right here. And you can snipe between these buildings. There's a very narrow gap between these buildings. It's not ideal for an autoloader because an autoloader needs to hit tanks more than once. But if you have a derp gun and you pre-aim and you sit there and wait for a heavy tank to cross over in this area, you can do damage to them. Because this area, there's a road that goes into the middle of the town, some of these tanks are going to be hull down, so you're not going to see the hull of their tank. You're going to see the deck of the tank, and you're going to see the turret. But if the tanks are more in the back here crossing over, then you're going to be able to hit them on the side. So that's a position that you can try. And the good thing about this position is if you have fast reflexes and good spotting, the chances that they fire back at you is so small. It's a really safe position. There's other positions you can shoot through the houses. You'll have to try on your own. I haven't tried them all yet, but I have tried that position. Now, in terms of spotting, I usually like to spot from here. There's a secondary position, which is here. Now, the reason why I chose the one that's further south is because I like to be closer to the enemy. If the enemy doesn't take the position, I'm going to take it. Chances are you're not going to get spotted. If not, you can take the more conservative position, which is closer to your base. My advice, take the more conservative position closer to your base, and as you become a better player, take the more advanced position. Okay, now that's my strategy that I play when I play on the northern team. So now I'm going to show you my strategy when I play on the southern team. I'm going to show you some sniping positions. There is one that is here, and there is one that is here, and there's another one that is here. From this position, you can snipe at tanks that go through this gap. And we're talking about big, heavy tanks that cross over here. It's not an easy position to play. It's going to be a tough position, and the reason why is because in the higher tiers, the tanks are going to run through the red line, and there's going to be a lot of these buildings in the way. And there's a hill over here. If you've got a low-profile tank, you might not be able to shoot over the hill. So there's going to be little issues. It's not ideal for every tank, but you probably want to check it out. So again, you've got heavy tanks crossing over here, and you've got this position, which you can also use to snipe across. There's a little bit narrower of a gap, and you can snipe at tanks this way. Not only that, but there's a tree here, and you can hide in the tree and not be spotted. So if you want, you can use it as a spotting position, and you can just sit there and let your allies up on the hill shoot at those tanks. That is the position that I primarily play when I play this map. There's another position which is right here, which you can use to hit heavy tanks as they cross over in this area. I'm not sure if this position is still here because the map may have been changed. The last time I went to go play here, I couldn't find the position. But then again, I went 6 months without playing. Now, this position is good for tanks with strong turrets because it's a hull down position. You're in a little recessed area, and if you have that strong rounded turret, you can sit there with your great gun depression and hit those enemy tanks as they come across. And I sit there and I bounce shots, and there's nothing that they can do, and they cannot snipe at you from over here. You're safe. Okay, so there obviously are going to be other positions where you can line up over here, or maybe something where you could line up over here. But that's something where you might need to coordinate more with your team. Make sure you have spotters when you take up that position, or use it in something like a clan war type position. Okay, now in terms of spotting, I prefer, again, to go into, I'm going to remove the map. I like to play in this position, and in this position, and over here, and over here. These circles are just estimates. From here, you're going to spot anybody that comes up over here, but you got to be careful. It's very difficult to get into this position. If you're a beginner, you might want to take this position. This is what most light tank players are going to do. They're going to take this back position, but I'm well equipped and I get there as fast as possible, and I usually make it to the position I want. Over here, you can spot tanks going into town. The problem is no one's going to snipe at them. So unless you're going to snipe at them, it's only good for tactical information. And same with this position. If no one's going to snipe at them, then it's just good for tactical information. So what I do is I wait for the heavy tanks to come across. And what happens, because they get spotted when I'm playing in this position, they just sit here and they're afraid to cross. And they start to clog up in this position. But let's say they do advance and they get over to here, then what I do is I flank them. I get behind them. I go up into this position slowly, or over to here, and I get behind them and I take shots at them from behind. But you do have to be careful because you can get hit from up here. So you got to be careful if you go out too far. And there might be a tank over here who can hit you. Now, in terms of playing in the south, I don't like to play in the south. Again, because it's mostly brawling. I'm not saying that I won't do it. I'm just saying that in general, I don't. Now, in terms of SPG, for the northern team, you're going to want to set up in a position like this where you can hit through the town and you can hit all the rest of the map. For the southern team, I like to set up my SPG around this location. From this location, you can hit tanks throughout here, especially underneath this area or anyone that crosses over the bridge. You're going to get beautiful shots on anyone that's on the wrong side of the rails. If the enemy team advances and your team is in the city and the enemy is coming up, they got medium tanks and they're coming up over here, you want to move your tank and make sure you go into this, well, that's the wrong icon. Make sure you go into this position over here if you're an SPG on the northern team. And be prepared to hide in the town. So that's the strategy that I use on this map. Let's look at some gameplay. Yeah, this tank is the FV215B. This is a British Tier 10 heavy tank. The map is Live Oaks. Live Oaks is one of my favorite maps. The reason why is because I am a light tank player, and I like playing maps that have somewhat of an open field. You're going to see a very interesting maneuver. You're going to see a new location where almost no one plays. So watch where I'm going to go. This is ideal for tanks that are very tall, such as a Type 5 Heavy. It's going to work out well for this particular tank. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover one of the access roads going into the town. So if tanks want to go into town, they're only going to be able to go so far before going in front of my gun. Oh, beautiful shot. Set him on fire. But it looks like he had firefighting crew skills, so he was able to put that fire out. If he had the fire, or he may have used a manual fire extinguisher. Now, I took 1,000 damage early on, but it's not going to matter. I'm going to have a great game. I'm going to get 3 kills. I'm going to do 4,600 damage. Now, you see where that Oho is? Not exactly the point that I'm going to play, but it's going to be somewhere in that area. If you look at the diagonal on the mini-map where the bat chat is, there's a little gap over there where you can shoot tanks as they're heading into town. That's why I chose this position, even though it's not an ideal position. But you can sit here and hit tanks on their way to town through that gap where I hit the bat chat. Now there's another gap where the STI is, which is in front of me. And I'm going to head for that area. And it's like I said, you never see people play in this position, but it's a very powerful position. So we've got an STI over here who wants to come out in the open, but I got my gun trained on him. I already got 1155 damage. So because I was spotted, was a little bit nervous. I got 394 on that STI, and I took 177 from the bat chat. But look at that. Can hit that IS-7. So you can see that they hit my tracks. Right here is the position I'm referring to. It's somewhat of a hull down position. And you can monitor this gap area.
And obviously that was a waste of a shot right there. You can hear a lot of bounces. I'm up to 1900 damage. Got another bounce. Now when you get into a side scraping position like that, you're going to switch to the high explosive rounds. You can see that I just switched to the high explosive rounds, and I'm going to be able to cause damage to his tank using the HE rounds. Did 117 damage. Did 203 damage. You see how much of that gap I can cover? 174 damage. Now, one thing that's important to remember, if a tank drives across this gap, it's going to be his side armor. And if you have high explosive rounds, or any round, but with high explosive rounds in particular, and you hit the engine in the right spot, you increase the chance you're going to set the enemy's tank on fire. And because it's side armor that you're going to be hitting if they drive across, a weaker tank can sit in this location and cause damage to many higher tier tanks. 183, I believe that was 3 or 4 shots using HE rounds. He's out of the game. That was 5 shots that I did using HE rounds on his side armor. Got up to 2,800 damage. So you can see there's a gap over there that I can shoot through. You can shoot all the way clear, so any tank that's heading to town has to go through that gap where I killed the Scorpion. I got 3,100 damage. Because I still have HE rounds, all I gotta do is nick their turret. Did 99 damage. If you only hit a little slice of damage, only see a little piece of their tank, you only have to show a little piece of your tank. I missed that shot. I really flubbed that shot. I've only got 1 HE round left. That's why I bring in a lot of HE rounds. Usually a third of my rounds are HE rounds, depending on what tank I use. And I switch rounds depending on what's appropriate. So the score is 13-10. We've got this FV. He's the last tank on this part of the map before we go after that Leo. He effed up on that. I did 549 damage. That was an HE round that I used. That's 2 kills, and as I told you, I'm going to get 3 kills in this game. I'll let you guess as to which tank the 3rd kill will be. So basically what's going to happen is the Leo, he's going to head back towards his base. We've got relatively slow tanks like the Maushan and the Oho, the Ferdinand, etc. Oh, I guess it's a Leopard. And the Ferdinand's going to have to come from the south. Some of the tanks are either going to be reluctant to head towards the Leopard, or they're going to be too slow. For whatever reason, I'm going to be the one that's in the position to make the shot. And I was hoping that the Ferdinand would take the shot, but the Leopard showed me his backside. So normally what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my ally get the kill. But because the Leopard's going to show me his backside, I decided to take the kill. So watch what's going to happen. He's on the other side of the rail, which is a smart thing to do. But the problem with what the Leopard is doing is he doesn't realize that being on that side of the rail is going to put him in the corner. I got a lucky shot in. He's down to a 1-shot. He's in a dumb position. He really wants to be behind us and to the south and more in the middle of the map. So here's the point where I'm thinking, okay, the Ferdinand's going to get the kill. I'm just going to push the Leopard towards the Ferdinand. The Ferdinand's going to have his gun pointing towards the Leopard. I have bad gun depression. But I saw a lucky shot and I took advantage of it. 4,600 damage, 3,700 blocked by armor. 3 kills.
This tank is the Fury. This is a tier 6 medium tank. I'm not sure what nation it is. It must be an American tank. I don't see any marker on it indicating the nation. I am going to get 3 kills. I'm going to do 2,000 damage. The map is Live Oak, so I'm going to show you a spotting position that you can use when you play on this map. Usually if I have a moderate tank, a non-scouting tank, I go to a particular position. There's 3 different positions I use. For scouting, I tend to go over here to these bushes on the right. To do some damage, I go over here. And if I have good gun depression, I will go into this dip area, but on the other side of the road. Now over here, there's a few different ways you can go. You can go behind this mound, and you get a nice clear shot. You can go into this bush over here, knock this tree down. You can get the tanks as they cross that alley and as they cross this gap over here. It's very difficult to spot the tanks over here. There's a lot of objects in the way, so it is quite difficult to get the tanks as they cross in that gap area. If you go to the position where I am right now, there's a fewer objects and it's a lot clearer. You do have to worry about how much of your tank gets exposed to the enemy. You'll have to try different positions with different tanks and see which position works best. When you play the game, you want your tank to be flat as much as possible. You have to be careful when you get on a sloped area. Being on a slope can screw up your gun depression. Trying to find that Lorraine 40T. After the tanks have made it to town, the next thing that I do is I try to flank them from the rear. He took way too long to turn around. Did a lot of damage to that T-150. You can see that we have them somewhat surrounded in the town. Look at where I am on the mini-map. Got a lot of nice shots through there. So we won in the town quite easily. There's one more tank. So I got 1 kill and 1,300 damage. I got 400 spotting damage. The reason why I use the auto aim is because I know I have to do some driving. So I wanted to get locked on him so I could drive to his position as quickly as possible. Had to drive through a lot of obstacles. You'll notice that I'm pinging on the mini-map the B0 section, which is where I think the enemy artillery is. So my allies know that there's a tank there, and hopefully they'll figure out on their own that I'm referring to artillery. I'm going to do some spotting for my team. You want to stay high when you want to spot, go low when you want to hide. Scores 11-7. In this game, along the rail line, you'll notice that in a few different locations, for example, right there, there is a bush that's on the rail. So what happens is often tanks will use those locations to peek over the rail line. So if you know where those are, there's another one, well, that might be a fallen tree. If you know where they are, you can predict where the enemy is going to be. Obviously, I'm going to go in for a ram. So because I was able to ram him for 67 damage, I was able to use that shell to fire at the WZ for an additional 119 damage. My ally in the south has died, so I'm taking up fire on my... I'm in crossfire right now. What I could have done is I could have butted up against the artillery. It's not necessary anymore, obviously. That's the game. This tank is a T-57 Heavy. This is an American Tier 10 heavy tank, and the map is Live Oaks. I am going to get 2 kills. I'm going to get 3,900 damage. What's important is going to be the sniping position that I'm going to take at the beginning of the game, and the methodology I'm going to use after I've exhausted that position. Now, there's 2 sniping positions you can take at the beginning of the game. There's one that shoots horizontally across the B row. When they're entering the city, you hit them as they drive across the road, and that's a secondary position. And the other position you take is around the B4 area or the B3 area. I'm going to hide behind some houses, look for a gap between the buildings that you can shoot across as the enemy tanks are headed on the way to town. And because they're in a hurry to get to town and they're vulnerable, they're going to keep on going. I almost never see them stop. And here's one of the firing positions you can use. It's right here. So I got 739 damage. I got 2 hits. If I had waited, I might have gotten more shots on the hulls of the enemy tanks. I'm obviously reloading. I'm halfway reloaded. Oh, he's not going to be happy. So now I'm going to try a secondary position, which I told you about for crossing the road. You don't have to park here. You can actually park a little bit behind me. There's some bushes and a little shed that you can use for cover, but I happen to use this position. I didn't get my last shot in. Ideally, you want to track him. I was trying to track him, so when I got my last shot in, he'd be stuck. I'm going to have to go for a reload. Now, there's snipers on the hill to my left. They're not high enough on the hill, so I'll be able to sneak around into the ditch and get behind that AMX and take shots at the T-30. So what I'm going to do is make a run for that ditch. Try to use the house to block any tanks on the other side so they don't see me and they can't shoot at me. Go up into the spotting bush and then pick a target. Check out if, oh, the AMX is dead. Look at that T-30. So I only penetrated on one shot. Unfortunately, the other 3 shots I was shooting for the track, and it didn't do any damage. It was a huge mistake. I could have done a substantial more damage to the T-30. I only have 1 round left because I reloaded in the middle. Because this tank doesn't have a lot of rounds in it, I'm probably going to bring less of the APCR rounds. I don't use a lot of APCR rounds. I don't like to play with them. So instead of bringing 12, 12, and 12, I'm probably going to increase my regular rounds and substantially reduce the APCR, which I rarely use. Try to hit that cupola. Oh, beautiful. Because those were APCR rounds, I was able to penetrate his hull. Now I got a problem. Because I don't have any ammo. All I can do is ram this guy. Or hope that an ally saves me. You want to ram him using the armor on the track. Keep your frontal armor facing the enemy. Now the score is 10-1. I got 3,500 damage. Normally, you would go, after you finish the job over here, you go to the hill right in front of you and you start firing into town. However, we won in the town, so it wasn't necessary to do it in this game. Oh, beautiful. Obviously, as soon as I'm done firing, I reverse to reload behind the hill. Wait until I'm halfway reloaded, and then go back into a firing position. That guy's going to try and drown. It's not going to work. You think I'll get the last shot? And that's the game. Well, that's not the game. That's 2 kills, 3,900 damage. And that's the game. This tank is a Tiger II. This is a German Tier 8 heavy tank, and the map is Live Oaks. We're going to look at a sniping position. We might see a few of them along the way. In terms of this tank, it's actually a pretty good tank. I enjoy playing it. I did not like playing any of the other Tiger tanks, such as the Tiger P. So this one is a lot better. When I played the Tiger P and the other Tiger tanks, I thought I was going to have an incredible game. I thought I was going to have this amazing armor. Because when I was a lower tier player, I could never penetrate those tanks, but I did not have great games in those tanks, and I did not enjoy playing them. But this one I do like, and I absolutely like the tanks that follow it. I prefer to play super heavy tanks as opposed to the regular heavy tanks. I'm not the brawler style player. So we're going to take a look over here at these houses. And you're going to notice that there's gaps between the houses, some of which you can shoot through. I've passed most of the rows of houses. This one is not an easy one to shoot through the gaps. We come to the next one, and again, the gaps are not that big. We have a very small gap over here. However, if someone else is spotting for you, or if you have really, really rapid reflexes, or maybe if you have a derp gun where you're only going to fire one shot and you're going to pre-aim, this might be a good spotting position. Why don't you take a look at where I am on the mini-map and where this house is and where I'm situated if you fit into that situation. If you want to hit the tanks multiple times, you do have to take up a different position. So obviously that tank did spot me, and I missed my shot. Very safe position. You're safe from artillery, you're safe from snipers, and most of the tanks are not going to shoot back at you. They're just going to keep on going. So unfortunately that tortoise became unspotted, and he's outside of my spotting range, so it's unlikely I'll be able to snipe at him. So I missed my opportunity to snipe to hit any tanks during this game, but I did get spotting damage on the Type 4 Heavy. Now, the spotting position that I like to use is actually right here. You can look at the mini-map where I am, take a good look at this position. And you can see it's a pretty good position. You can hit all those tanks as they're going by. And any of the tanks that choose to remain, such as the Tortoise, there's a lot of tanks that like to play hull down in that position. You're going to find a lot of T-30s and a lot of T-34s that sit over there where the Tortoise is. So another good thing about this sniping position is you can get some additional action on enemy tanks. But we're getting to be the point outside of the scope of sniping positions, so let's move on to the next video. This tank is the Batchat 25T. This is a French Tier 10 medium tank, and the map is Live Oaks. I am going to show you a sniping position, or more than one, that you can use on this map. And I've discovered some new ones, and we're going to actually be driving by some of the positions. If you look over here, you'll notice that you can actually shoot between those houses. Look on the mini-map where I'm pointing at. You can shoot between the houses at tanks that are in the E1 area on their way to the city. And here's another example where you can shoot through, although it looks like there's a house in the way. And here's another example where you can shoot through. But I'm going to one of my favorite positions, and the reason why is because I have an autoloader, and this is ideal for someone who has an autoloader or a derp gun. And there's also a secondary position, which is basically to move forward. So we got the first tank showing up. Oh, nice. Didn't receive any damage. Well, maybe I did. Okay, so I took him out of the game. 1,800 damage. I did receive about 700 damage or 800 damage from the T-57 Heavy. So once I reload any other vehicles that cross through that gap, I'm going to be able to shoot at. And the longer it takes for them to do it, the better it is for me. All they're doing is giving me more time. That's why it's important to make decisions quickly. You don't want to waste time and give your enemy chances to reload and things like that. Unfortunately, I was spotted. I hate being spotted over here. I guess I didn't line up my tank properly or well enough. Up to 2,200 damage. Missed a shot on him. But I did get 770 spotting damage. So now after I play in this position, I either move forward to the house in front of me or I go to the right and into town. So you can see that what I decided to do was move forward. I missed another shot on that mouse. And there's an E100 out there. And this is the position you take to hit those tanks as they cross over. Oh, nice. Thank you. If you watch my videos on Live Oaks on sniping, you're going to see this position in many of my videos. There are other tanks out there, but I have the feeling that they're not going to head to town. We know that there's a T110 E4 and that there is an E100 that did not cross over yet. Come on, kill him. Okay, I'm on low hit points now. I'm up to 3,300 damage. This tank is a Tiger II. This is a German Tier 8 heavy tank, and the map is Live Oaks. I am going to show you a sniping position that you can use when you play on this map. And this sniping position is going to be playable with a slower tank such as the Tiger II. It's only doing 32 kilometers. The reason why it's important is because you want to get to the sniping position as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you're going to miss some of your targets. We're going to be able to hit the slower targets, such as the enemy Type 5 Heavy, who's going to pass by on that route. As for this tank, I'm not that crazy about this tank. I really don't enjoy playing it. I prefer the heavy tanks from the other nations. But I do play every tech tree, and I have every tech tree mostly on Tier 9 or Tier 10. This is obviously a Tier 8 because I don't like playing it that much. There's a couple different positions you can play, so this just happens to be one of them. I often go to... I don't know if I go to that next building or not. You could play behind here. You could go to the building one street over, which allows you to shoot down the street. You can go to... Over here behind me, you see that there's a tree in the center of the screen. There's a little shed and there's a little bush. That bush is a sniping position that you can use that allows you to hit the tanks that are entering town, right at the point that they enter town, as they go through the first row of houses. Okay, so here comes the Type 5 Heavy. Might not be able to penetrate it, but we'll see what happens. I reloaded by mistake. Did 289 damage. I hit his roof, which should be weak armor, but I ricocheted. So I did 854 damage against that Type 5 Heavy so far. And I know he doesn't have good gun depression, so he has to expose himself. He did hit me with an HE round. He is 2 tiers higher than me, which means he will do a lot of damage. And I know he has a long reload. In general, almost every tank that has a high damage usually has a long reload. Missed again. $308 damage. By the time he makes it into town, he's going to be at a fraction of his hit points. He really is playing the wrong strategy. And he took the wrong position when he went into that lower area because it's affecting his gun depression. What he should be doing is reversing to use gun elevation instead of using the gun depression. He would have been able to hit me. I'm just going to sit here, spot him when I need to spot him. He took another 500 damage right there. Spotting him from the other side of the building. He's not going to have his gun. Oh, he did have his gun pointed that way. Okay, so like I said, he's only down to 900 hit points. He lost 2,000 hit points because of the fact that I was in that position harassing him. I did 1,466 damage, and I did 526 spotting damage. And if I am correct, the 1,466 damage that I did was all against the Type 5 Heavy. This tank is the ELC Even 90. This is a French Tier 8 light tank. The map is Live Oaks. I'm going to show you a sniping position that you can use on this map. In regards to this tank is a little difficult to drive because it doesn't have enough engine power. So a small obstacle, like a small wall, can really slow you down. And the gun is absolutely horrible. You need the gun laying drive and the V-stab, or anything you can, cruise skills, to improve your gun handling. That's a great spotting bush where that AMX 1357 went to. You'll notice that there's some hills over here, which over here, if you get behind these hills and that house, there's a great view of the tanks on their way to town. There's a little bush over here where you do have a view of the tanks going to town, but it's somewhat obstructed. You can see that a T-29 made it across without me noticing. And you get two chances. You get a chance to hit them as where the black prince is. And if you miss, you get another chance to hit them where the IS-4 is. If you get spotted and you need safety, in this case, all you have to do is drive forward and hug that house or that house there, or head for the dip over here. You can see the gun handling is not very good. There is artillery in this game, and I can definitely be hit by the artillery. So I did 690 damage. In this position, I only did 217 damage against the T-29. The other damage I did was at the start of the game. So not only is it a sniping position, but you can get around the rear of the enemy. And what I do is I snipe from that position, wait for the enemy to go into town. Ideally, if the enemy is spotted, because we have lots of allies in the town, you come over here and you put pressure on their rear flank. But you have to be very careful because obviously the artillery at base can hit you here. And you'll notice that there's an unspotted T-92. And he's right behind me. He just appeared on the minimap. And he was a threat that I didn't realize. But from this position, you can snipe down that road into the town. This tank is a WZ-111 1-4. It's a Chinese Tier 9 heavy tank. The map is Live Oaks. I'm going to show you a sniping position, which is also an ambush position. Being an ambush position means that you're going to be a little bit better off if you have a derp gun that does a lot of damage, or if you have an autoloader which can do a lot of damage in a short period of time. This particular tank has a certain type of turret style. It has a rounded turret, which means you're going to choose your ambush position on this map dependent on the type of turret you have. And there's two choices. One is basically where this STA-2 is headed for those bushes in front of me, and the other one, there's a little mound. There's some houses over here, and there's a mound. You can get behind that mound. That's another position that I'll show you in a future video. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm headed to the mound. I don't think this one's going to go to the mound. Okay. Just to be clear, where I said the STA-2 was headed, we came from a little dip, and there's a bunch of bushes over there, and you see where that STA-2 is, where the road is? Basically, there's a position right there where you can sit. I'm pointing to it directly on the map. that lets you shoot down that road, which is a very good hull down position, which if you look at my previous videos, you're going to see it in my previous videos. There's a lot of stuff in the way, which makes it difficult to use this position. And you got to deal with our artillery. Obviously, this is a game that has artillery. If I had gotten closer to the building, the artillery would have had less of an impact on me. You can see the IS-4 hit me from the side road because I was not in a good position, so I repositioned. But that's part of playing the game. You know, I know the position. It takes a little bit of practice to learn how to use it properly. You can see that the M103 he's too close for comfort. So I'm a little bit worried about the M103. I've got something I have to keep an eye on. If he starts heading my way, I'm going to have to run or defend myself. I got hit by the artillery again. The Conway is unspotted at this time. One of the good things about this position is that if you've got a good battle going on in the town, which we don't because the enemy tanks are unspotted, my team has not entered the town, what you can do is you can come up on the rear and you can put pressure on the enemy from the rear. This is a secondary position. I hit the tanks on their way into town from that position that I initially was at, and then I fall back to this position and hit them a second time as they cross the road going in. I did receive a lot of damage in this particular game. However, don't underestimate this position. I use it many times. I have a lot of great hits from being in this position. And like I said, if you look at these hills right over here, you got a hull down position right over here that you can use. So we found the Conway. This position is no longer useful. Okay, so we're getting outside of the focus of the position, and let's move on to another video. This tank is the AMX 1390. This is a French Tier 9 light tank, and the map is Live Oaks. I am going to get 2,900 spotting damage and 2 kills, but what's good about this game is you're going to see some good tactics in this game that you can use as a light tank player when you're playing on maps such as Live Oaks. So normally what I try to do is I want to spot as many tanks going to city as I can. So this is one of the spotting bushes you can use right over here. You get a pretty good view, but you're going to miss the fast tanks that have already made it to town. And the other thing is, along the A row, the road is elevated, so tanks that have a low profile are going to be able to get to town if they're driving on the other side of that road. You can see we can already spot that Badger. One of the things that I do when I play this game is I check along the rail to see if any of the enemy tanks come to my side of the rail. And if they do come to my side of the rail, I see if I can take shots at them. Because the game is going a little slow, I'm going to go to spot the city to see if I can find any tanks in the city. Obviously, I found one, which is the STI. Now you notice that what I'm doing is I'm driving down this road, and I'm going to spot all the tanks. There they are. They just got spotted. So I'm going to pause the game.
You can see we've got the Object 260, the ST1, and another ST1. And there is a structure over here which is a water tower which has a solid base. And if you slip between that gap, all the tanks that are over here behind you once you get into this area, you're safe from these tanks. So you can go in and just spot everybody and then just drive away. And I didn't take any damage. I got hit, but no damage was taken. You're going to want to drive as far away as possible so that you're out of their spotting range. And remember that the SPG might be watching you. But now we know that there's 3 heavy tanks in that area, and it allows my team to make a more educated decision as to how to handle the game. Because I'm a fast tank, I can do a lot of proximity spotting where I can get a block away from those tanks and keep them spotted, and if they try to come after me, just run away. Now this is a spotting bush. The reason why this bush is good is because you can see the tanks that are coming down through this gap, and you can actually shoot at them even though there's some obstacles in the way, and you can monitor what's going through on this road. And you can shoot them ideally in the tail. If you shoot them in the tail, they're more likely to continue going. If you shoot them in the front, they're more likely to turn their guns and shoot at you. Based on the fact that I did not spot those tanks as I drove around through the town, my guess is that they're still in that area where they were initially spotted. We do have a Maushin coming in. And we've got 2 snipers, the T-30 and the Scorpion G, but they're unlikely to hit anything. If I go into the town right now, it would be pretty much me going in alone. Now, we've got a couple different strategies. One is we could go after that Badger. We got a lot of guns pointing towards the hill where the Badger is. We could go try and hunt down the enemy SPG. However, there's only 1 enemy SPG. If there were 3 enemy SPGs, and you have an open run on the enemy SPGs, there's more rewards for going after the SPGs. You can see that we're fairly even. The enemy has covered more territory in the south. However, we're still holding up against them. We've got more allies heading north. The Jagdpanzer and the T-54 have left their midfield position and have headed north. One thing I could do is I could try to draw the enemy out of that position, which I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do in this game. But drawing them out just means going in and spotting them and pretending to be slow. Okay, here comes an ST1. For those of you who are curious, the 1 is the Roman numeral 1. It's the letter I, but it represents the Roman numeral 1. So it would be called the ST1. When you have a side scraper like that, you want to hit them with HE rounds. You're not going to do as much damage as you do with an AP round, but at least you can still do damage. The weaker side armor will take significant damage if you hit it with an HE round. You'll notice that I'm notifying my team that they should use HE rounds on the side of the STI, the ST1. You'll also notice that one of the ST1s has retreated back towards the base area, which is starting to give me ideas. We've got a lone tank going through an open field on the A row. I could go to the A5 area and I could snipe on the rear of that ST1. The other thing I could do is I could go after the ST1. Right there, nice shots. Looked like I had a ghost shell. And he didn't spot me. I don't think he spotted me. Maybe I was spotted, I wasn't paying attention. So when you do this type of a city tactic, I'm going to go after this ST one. You don't want to be right next to him. You want to be far enough away that you can find a clear shot, but not close enough that you're going to be proximity spotted or that you can't run easily. I've played this game many times. What I could have done is I could have gone on the other side of this building, been closer to the ST1, and it's more dangerous over there. So you want to be further away, like, for example, in this position, even if you got to knock some buildings down. You'll notice it's very easy for me to get away from him. And he shows little concern for me. The score is 8-2. We did win in the south. If you want to increase chance of starting the engine on fire, you want to hit the enemy tank on the axle in the middle of the tank in the rear. So the lower rear is where you're going to aim your shot. I did substantive testing on setting the engine on fire, and I found that that's the spot that increases the chance of doing it. Now, to make the final run in, the score is 10-2. I'm going to ride along the bushes over here. Use the bushes for cover. I was able to hit the track of that tank. The score is 12-2. There's still one tank that's unspotted. Probably going to proximity spot the STI. Well, you'll notice I took a chance that he was pointing his gun the other way, which was a really dumb idea because obviously I'm the only one spotted and he sees me coming in. He knows that I'm coming that way. But what I did was I timed my reload so that when I came around is about the time that I'm going to be reloaded. Although I only got one shot in. But I can make another run around. And you'll notice that this is the ST1 that left the city. He's not a very good player. You can tell by the way he's playing. And that's the game. I did 2,900 spotting damage, 1,600 damage, 2 kills, and the score was 15-2.